Yo, 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 what is up, YouTube? It's a junkie, and I'm back with another, what do you want to call it? Shooting the shit, talking about comics. This video here I'm going to make is how my collecting style has changed over the years. And just to give you guys a little sneak peek, off there to the side, to the left, 23,844 comics. That's right, guys. I am like 156 comics away from being at 24,000. Um, Super stoked about that. Love my collection. Love everything. Every book in this collection I love. And, I think, this video may offend some people. It may not, but who knows. But, I speak my mind, and some people like it, some people don't. But, um, I think, in my personal opinion, I think the passion for comics, for the stories, for the art, for the enjoyment of collecting, completing runs, or getting your favorite key, I think in today's collecting community, I think that has kind of gotten lost. And I don't believe, I'm not saying all, but I don't believe most collectors collect for the enjoyment of completing a run. Um, I don't find very many videos on people showing like filler books, or say, hey, I'm working on, for instance, I'm working on the Nam run, and I'm really trying to complete this run, and these are the books I need. And then seeing people go out and finding the books they need to complete a run, or to just completing runs, or just working on filler books. You don't see that very much anymore, and it's kind of sad in a way that that's kind of gotten lost in the collecting world today. I think most people focus on, and I'm even guilty of it, of collecting like the hot book of the week, or the top variant of the week, and which is fine. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to collect, but as for me, I really do enjoy watching people collect runs. So that's why I wanted to kind of make this video to talk to you guys about how my experiences in collecting comics, and how I collect, and how I've collected over the years has changed. And I'm not saying, like I said before, collect the way you want to collect comics for whatever reason you want to collect. Um, I'm just giving my point of view, and how collecting for me, how I've noticed the different changes over time, and how my collecting style has changed. Um, I was 8 years old. Let me see if I can pull up my first comic here. I was 8 years old, and had 7 or 8, whatever third grade was. I was in third grade, so it's like 7 or 8, and I got my very first comic, which was Captain America. I'm gonna try to get to here, guys, real quick, and show you right here. This was my very first. Let me see if it'll let me enlarge it. I guess not. But Captain America. Yeah, it's not gonna let me enlarge it. That sucks. Definitely don't want to delete it. But Captain America, I believe it was 207, was my very first comic. And I got that I was in the third grade, and my third grade teacher, what she would do was, for the boys, she gave each kid a stocking, and for the boys, she put a comic book in their stocking, along with candy, and the girls, she put like a little Barbie doll in their stocking. And I remember getting that comic, and I read it in class, because it was Christmas time, so we didn't really have to do a lot of schoolwork. It was more like party time. So I read that book, and I remember I must have read that comic 5 or 6 times over Christmas break. And I remember my father at the time, uh, he would, he would go on business trips or whatever, and he would bring back a little stack of comics. And I remember collecting comics as a kid, and I just collected just to read the stories. It didn't matter what it was. I just wanted to read the stories. So in case you guys are looking at this, this section here is labeled None, and I have 62 comics in this section. And basically these are all some of my Golden Age books and titles that I couldn't find in the CLZ app, but I wanted to count them as part of my collection, so I put them in here. What I really need to do is go back and label each one of these boxes and give it a title and a name, because you can do that. You can give it a title, a name, whatever. But yeah, so that was my first experience collecting comics when I was a kid. And, I didn't get very many when I was a kid. I got a little bit of an allowance, and I remember down the street from where I lived, there was this convenience store. And me and my friends, we collected comic books, and we collected, if you guys remember, the little plastic army soldiers. They were probably 2 or 3 inches tall, but they came with like tanks and jeeps and stuff like that. And we collected those, and we collected comics. And I remember every week, or every couple weeks, we would go down this gas station and, of course, get our candy and our Cokes. And I would always pick up, a couple comics. And I just remember reading the shit out of those comics. And I loved it, But, of course, being a kid and not, getting an allowance, but, it wasn't much. But comics were cheap back then. They were 25, 30 cent, 75 cent, 65-cent books. And you could get a couple of them for a couple dollars. So I just remember going in there and really enjoying the stories and getting what my dad would bring home. But it wasn't until I turned, my father had passed when I turned 15, and I had gotten a job at a mall here in Tampa. And my brother-in-law at the time got me a job working maintenance. So, I was the kid walking around with the cart, cleaning, changing the trash cans, vacuuming the carpets at night. And it was a weekend job. And I shortly turned 16, and then I started working at McDonald's at night. So I worked at McDonald's at night after school, and I worked at the mall on weekends. So I was getting pretty decent money for a kid my age, 16, 17 years old. And I remember when I worked at the mall, there was, as I'm going through, I'm just scrolling through my CLZ app so you guys can kind of see what I have in my collection. But there was a Walden Books, and this was the first place that I never really went to a comic book store as a kid or a teenager. I mainly went to, Walden Books or convenience stores, or some, grocery stores even carried them too in their magazine section. But that's basically where I got a bulk of my comics. But Walden Books was the first place I went to that had a pretty good selection of comics. And I remember on my breaks at the mall when I went, I would go into Walden Books, spend my whole entire break, and I would just buy comics, man. I'd spend the bulk of my paycheck on comics. That's where I really started building up my collection. And back then it was strictly still just for the stories. And I kind of got a taste of picking up doubles. I picked up Amazing Spider-Man 361. And you guys know that's the first appearance of Carnage. And that was the first book that I can remember that I bought actual multiple copies of. I want to say I bought six copies, because the cover just really caught my eye. It had nothing to do with speculating or selling comics, because for you younger generations of collectors, back then there wasn't an eBay, there wasn't any kind of like online marketplaces. There was no online anything really. So the only way you would really be able to sell books is maybe take them to a comic book store or sell them to a friend or whatever, or trade. But yeah, so that was my first memory and experience of buying multiple copies was of Amazing Spider-Man 361, first appearance Carnage. I still have all five. Well, I had six. I gave one away in a contest. I still have five, and they're all newsstand, and they've been in my collection ever since then, and it's a book that I really cherish because it is one of the first books that I remember buying doubles of. Um, so like I said, in my younger days, from between 8 and 17, I was collecting mainly, I mean, look how many copies I have of the Superman Return. I mean, that's just crazy. Um, that is the first time I remember buying multiples of a book. Um, but my collecting style was still mainly just uh, stories and art. I then I as I got older, I got a little bit better job. I started working for a local grocery chain, and I got full time. And this is probably around. I started working there when I was 18, and it's the same company that I work for today, which is crazy. I've been there going on 30 years. September of next year will be 30 years that I've been with one company. I left for a short time and for 1 year, and I came back. I had to my it's a long I don't even want to get into it, but I had to retire, what they call quote unquote retire, to cash in my stock to get my ex-wife out of debt, and you have to wait a year before you come back. So I came back, and that's when I would say probably when I was 21, 22, 23. Up until then, like I said, I was mainly collecting stories and really just collecting titles that I liked. I remember collecting X-Men, Spider-Man. It was mainly Marvel. I don't think I picked up really hardly any DC at all. Maybe if I did, it was a book here and there, but it was mainly just Marvel books. Mainly X-Men related books, like X-Men, Wolverine. I remember falling in love with Wolverine at a very, very young age. Like I said, but I didn't have a lot of money back when I was a kid to buy comics. So buying X-Men books was not, I'd buy the ones that came out on the newsstands. But in like the mid 90s, when the whole comic book craze hit, that's when I really remember starting collecting doubles. And it wasn't triples or quadruples, it was mainly just two. I would buy one to read and one just to keep. And that's my first memory of collecting like doubles. It wasn't until my late 30s, early 40s that I really remember collecting quadruples, 5, 6, 7 copies of a book. But when the 90s comic crash happened, I kind of got out of comics. It it was just a bad time for comics. A lot of the stories and the art wasn't very good, and I was in my early 20s, and my focus changed from comics to women. I started going to clubs. I started hanging out with my friends, and I started going to we went to bars slash clubs 6 nights a week. I'd get off work at 3 or 4. I'd come home, take a nap, eat dinner. We'd go to the club at 11, and some days I would change in the parking lot from going to clubs right to work, and then do it all over again the next night. So I really got out of comics for like 5 or 6 years in that time frame. And I focused more on my personal life and stuff like that. So I would say probably from like 92, 93 to like 98, 99, I really didn't buy any comics at all. As a matter of fact, my comic book collection was quite small that it fit in a closet. Not to the top, but probably 4 or 5 rows high and about 3 or 4 boxes deep. So it wasn't an extensive collection, but it was decent. Um, but I do remember probably early 2000, 2001, I got back into comics. And I kind of got back into comics strictly, not strictly, but mainly for collecting, um, for speculation. I wanted to see if I could make money, you know, not selling comics, but my idea in my head was to sell comics. And this is where my obsession with doubles and, as you can see, quadruples and whatever that's when it really kicked in. Because my thought process was I wanted to buy comics that I thought were going to be hot, sell some of them to fund my collection. So basically, I wanted to flip books to buy books that I wanted. But what ended up happening is I do have OCD and I have compulsive obsessive disorder. So I would buy multiple copies with the thought and the idea of selling. Like if I bought 5 copies of this book, see this book here, All New Wolverine, the Venomized cover. My thought process was I'd buy 5, sell 3, keep 2, and then use the money I made from these and buy a book that I wanted. But what would happen is I would go to try to sell them, and I was too attached, and I couldn't. So that idea of me collecting strictly to kind of buy books to flip them in order to make money to buy more books, it lasted for about a year, and I never sold a book. So I ended up buying doubles and triples of books, and with the intent of selling 1 or 2 of them, but never did. So my collecting style changed from, as a kid to a young adult, from stories to um, to runs and to art to maybe kind of sell some books to buy more books, but that never took off. And then it really changed to I went through a phase where I would say for about 4 or 5 years, I just wanted, my main concern in collecting was to amass a massive collection, whether it was good books or bad books. It didn't matter. I just wanted to have an enormous collection. That was my goal in life at the time of collecting. My collecting life was to just build a library of comics that was so massive that people would be like, holy shit, this guy's got such and such amount of books. That was my obsession, and that was my obsession for a very long time. And along with that obsession of trying to amass a huge collection, a lot of times I would buy books that are just crap. They weren't very good. They they weren't worth anything. They were titles that I didn't even collect. And at that time, I didn't have a lot of DC books. I had a few. I had a few Batmans, nothing major. A few Justice League books, no Wonder Woman, no Aquaman, nothing like that. It was mainly like the main titles. And this is around the time that I discovered eBay. And now you're looking at my Alpha Fly books. I discovered eBay. And at the time, on eBay, when I first started buying books, there wasn't a big craze or push, and not a lot of people, to me, now I'm talking about this from my experience, it didn't seem like a lot of people were really collecting comics at the time. Because, you had the crash in the mid to late 90s, and people just got out of comics. So people really weren't buying comics. So you could find lots of comics, LOTS, on eBay for dirt cheap. I'm telling you, dirt cheap. Like I would buy, you could almost get a short box of comics for like 30, $40. Nowadays, it's unheard of. You're not going to find that. Even on books that no one even wants, you're not going to find that. So that's what I did. I would find on eBay, 100 comics for $20, and I would buy it. Whether I liked the books or not, whether I even heard of them or not, I bought them just to amass an enormous collection, because that was my goal at the time, was just to get as many books as I can for the cheapest price that I could. And it didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter if I read it, if I planned on reading it. It just didn't matter. I just wanted to have an enormous collection. So, and if you guys are looking at this, double check. I'm sorry, I'm off topic, but double check your CLZ app, because I know I have like 6 or 7 of these books here. A lot of times it seems like books just drop off your CLZ app. I've noticed that. Or if you log them in, sometimes they don't register, so you have to. What I do is, like, once a month I really just go through, because I have a rough idea in my head of what I have, and I know I have more than 4 copies of this book here. So now I'll have to make a mental note, and what I'll do is I'll write on a little notepad, double check Amazing Spider-Man such and such book or whatever, and I'll just go through my collection and double check. And if you need to re-add it, just re-add it. That's just a simple tip that I do. But I double check my CLZ app at least once a month and just kind of scroll through like I'm doing here, and just notice if I have more books. But anyways, getting back on topic. So at the time, I would buy bulk comics just to bulk up my collection. So, let's see, around 2002, around 2000, was it 2000? All right, yeah, around 2000, me and my ex-wife separated, and that's when I really started massing up my collection. Um, and like I said, I would buy bulk just to buy books, just to have them in my collection, whether I collected it, whether I read it, whether I even heard of it or not. I still bought them just to have them. And again, crept back into my mind, what I can do is I can buy 100 comics for 20, and if it's stuff that I don't want, I can flip them on eBay and make money back to buy more books. So that idea crept back in my head again, and I would put books on eBay, and they'd be on there for literally 10 minutes, and I would pull them, because I just couldn't let go. And this is where getting personally attached to your books comes into play. Oh, here you go. If you click on the book, it'll show on the side here. This is where getting attached to comics happens to some people, and that's why some people can't sell books or trade books, because they get too attached. And like I said, I have OCD and I have compulsive order, so I get attached to my books. So for me to send off books in an A-OK or to try to sell, it's really hard for me to let them go. So that's why I don't do very many A-OKs anymore, because I find it hard for me to let my books go. And like I said, like this book here, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 copies of this book. And if somebody in the comic book community that I'm friends with is like, hey Don, do you happen to have Amazing Spider-Man? I don't know, what book is this? 797. Do you want to trade? Do you want to sell it? I would find it hard for me to let one of these go. Even though I have 17 copies of it, it would be hard for me to let that book go. And that's kind of the downside of having disorders and collecting, having a hobby like this, is that I know I could sell books in my collection to finish my Uncanny X-Men run and have it complete. I know it. I know for a fact I could. And I could have it complete next week. But I just can't bring myself to sell my books. Hence, the reason I have 23,844 comics. But yeah, to get back into it. So again, the thought process was buy bulk, sell the ones I don't want, make the money, and buy books I do want. Again, didn't pan out, didn't work. So I ended up buying, I mean, look at this. This is when every once in a while it clicks in my head, the speculation phase. I want to spec books. And this is what happens. I end up buying, look at this. I mean, look at this. This was the Red Goblin craze. I mean, just look at this, guys. Look at this. It starts here. It starts with this book here. 790, what is it? 795? 792. 5 copies, 2 of the variant. And then boom, 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 and then look. And then it just picks up. And look at that. That is what I have in my short boxes. But the shitty part is I'm part speculator, but I can't sell. So that's the dilemma. That is my Achilles heel, is my disorder, in that I get attached to my books and I can't let them go. Now the prices on these have dropped, but who knows? He could possibly make a comeback and these books will get hot again. But the downside is what happens is with speculation is that these, I mean, on a rare occasion, a book will hold its value or go up. And that is a rare occasion. So to new collectors or older collectors that have thought about doing what I've done here, just think about it. This book, there are so many copies printed that this book here, even if this character becomes super hot, will probably never get over $10 or $15. It'll never be an Amazing Spider-Man 361 or an Amazing Spider-Man 300. It'll never be that book, because back then the print run was so low because there weren't many collectors back then. Because you got to remember, when those books were printed, it was right after the collapse of comics. So too many people were scared to buy comics. So the print run of those books are very, 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 very low. Where these print runs on these books here are very high. So there's more books on the market. That means the price will never get above a certain dollar amount. That's what I believe. On a rare occasion, it could happen. But for the most part, I don't believe those books will ever increase in value that much to make it worth your while. So, getting back to it, so like I said, I went through a phase of really just buying bulk comics. Bulk. Ruled my life, buying bulk. Now some stuff that I bought, I read, and I did fall in love with some of the stories. Some of it I read and put it in a box. Oh, here we go. Here we go. 361. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 copies. So that just goes to show you, I had 6 and I gave one away, and they're all newsstand. And they're probably all 9/8 candidates, because I got them home, I read one of them, and the rest went in a bag and board, and that's where they stayed. But it came out in 1992. So I was 21 at the time when this book came out. So that's right. It's right around the time I was still working at the mall, and I was, I bought this book. But oh, and here you go. Here's 4 more copies. Why it's down here, I don't know. But anyways, so my collecting style changed, and then I switched back into. Then I took another break. I took a little bit of a break. I got out of comics for a while. I was buying here and there, but not much. Maybe 5 or 10 books a month. And then I got back into collecting hardcore probably about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. 10 to 12 years ago, buying hardcore. And that's where I'm at now. Now I'm at almost 24,000 comics. And I love my books. I'll never let them go. I do give out books in AOKs. But for the most part, my books never leave my collection. They're here with me forever. And so that's been, and now I'm more, now I've switched back almost to what I collected as a kid. I'm more of a character slash group collector and a run collector. Um, I really don't hunt for keys anymore unless it's a key that I need for my collection or a run. Other than that, I don't go out looking for. If I stumble upon one or I find one for a good price, then yes, I'll buy it. But I don't hunt for keys specifically anymore. I don't hunt for them to, um, you know, I need this book in my collection. Because if it's a book that I don't, like a Fantastic Four book, I don't really hunt for Fantastic Four keys because that's not something I really collect. So, like now, like I said, it's all mutant titles and Conan are my big obsessions right now. So that's basically how my collecting style has changed, and that's where I'm at today. Now, who knows in a year or two where that will go, or how my collecting style will change. I may get a hair at my ass and say, you know what, I'm tired of having a huge collection like this. It's too much, and I may just try to sell all of it and just buy, keep what I want and just try to go from there. Who knows? It could happen. I seriously doubt it. I mean, look at this. Look at this astonishing X-Men run. Look how many copies of each issue I have. It's insane, guys. My collection is fucking insane. And I look at the CLZ app, and I scroll through this, like I said, at least once a month. Sometimes it's even more. And I just scroll through this app, and I just look at the covers, and I'm like, these are all my books. This is my collection, and I'm very proud of it. Some people may say it's a shit collection. Some people may say it's a fantastic collection. But collecting comics only matters to the collector. That's it. It doesn't matter what other people think of your collection. As long as you love it, and as long as you're having fun doing what you do, who cares what anybody thinks? If you love being a speculator, then be a speculator. If you love collecting keys, then collect keys. If you're a variant collector, collect variants. If you're a run collector, collect runs. But when you make videos, be proud of what you collect. I hear a lot of people in YouTube videos say, I'm just, I don't want to show filler books. Why? There's people out there. You're missing out. You're it's late and I don't know how to word it. But you're canceling out a certain part of your viewership by not showing filler books. Because some people pertain to filler books. I know that's hard to believe, and I know some people don't believe that, but there are people out there who just want to see people show filler books. They're not into keys. They're not into variants. They're not into speculating. They just want to see people show comics, show their collection, show what's in the box videos, because people like that type of stuff. You know what I mean? It's not for everyone, and not everybody will enjoy it. But you're leaving out a part of your viewership by just saying, "Oh, I don't want to show filler books." I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of time on them. Just flip through them. I do. When I show my videos, I don't talk about each book. I'm like, "Hey, this is issue number 199, 200, 201," and I just show because I know there's people out there that want to see that. So that's how my collecting style has changed over the years. It's changed a lot, and it will change a lot as I get older. Um, I get inspired by when I watch people like Captain Strangelove, or when I watch videos on YouTube of, I type in world's biggest comic book collection, and I see some of these people that have collections that are like double the size of mine, and I'm like, that to me is inspiring, because that is something that I would want. You know what I mean? Like right now in my life, I want to have a massive collection. I like a massive collection. And it doesn't have to be all keys. It doesn't have to be all X-Men books or you know, number ones or 9/8. I mean, it doesn't have to be that. I like comics just to like comics. And, you know, I get comments all the time because I do have such a big collection. Do you read all your books? No, I don't read all my books. I haven't read all my books. Um, I try to, and if I have time, I try to read 4 or 5 books a week if I can. If I can read more, then I will. But the thing is I am not always going to be full time at work. Like I said, I'm 48. I'm getting close to the time where I'm probably going to go part time. My wife's and my stock options for our job are doing very well. And there's going to come a time where I don't have to work full time. I can be part time. She can be part time. And that's when I become part time and when I fully retire from work, that's when I'm really going to sit back and enjoy my collection. You know, it may be when I turn 62 or 65. But then I'll have 20 years to sit back and just, you know what? I'm going to read all my X-Men books. And I'll sit down and I'll read 10 or 15, 20 books in a day, you know? But for right now, I just want to build my collection. Um, so I kind of hope this video helped. And I'm giving you a peek into my collection. And you can look at my collection. You can see it's not all keys. It's not all what they call big boy books. Um, it's filler books. It's obscure titles like Batgirl. You know, I have a pretty good Batgirl run. Um, it's just obscure books. It's not. It doesn't. You just remember, guys and gals, your collection doesn't have to be all keys. Collect what you like. Collect what you want. Collect what you love. That will bring you enjoyment in your collection. Is when you have stuff that you want, not what other people want you to have, but what you want. If you want to collect doubles, collect doubles. If you want to collect triples, do it. If you only want one, do it. Um, but I will say that I'm not a fan of digital books. Um, I am a physical media junkie, and I love physical media. I love DVDs. I love Blu-rays. I love the actual comic book. Um, to me, the digital age is on the rise, and I feel like it will hurt comics or movies. You know what I mean? I like having the movie box in my hand and I can look at it and read it, than reading it online or watching it online. I'd rather have the DVD. I'd rather have the comic book. That's just me. Some people are like that. Some people don't. Some people believe, hey, having a massive collection, I don't have the space for it. And I understand that. I understand that not everybody can have a room like I do dedicated for their comic book collection. I understand that. And I mean, look at this. Look at this variant, guys. This is the German edition of Batman Eternal number 19. And it's only limited to 999 copies. And I have 8 copies. So, you know, people also ask me, how did you get your name, Don Comic Book Junkie? Well, it's a funny story. My wife gave me that name, to be honest. I was getting ready to make my YouTube channel, and I was trying to come up with a name. And, you know, of course, you know, everybody wants a catchy name. And so she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to figure, because I had a pad out. I was writing different things down of what I wanted to call my channel. And I said, I'm just trying to figure out a name for my channel. And she goes, you know what? She goes, you know, these comic books for you is like crack. It's like a drug. She goes, you act like a damn junkie with these comics. And I said, holy shit, you just gave me my name. Don, which is me, comic book, and I'm a junkie. So that's how I came up with my name. It was actually my wife helped me come up with that name, Don Comic Book Junkie. And yeah, so wow, this video is 40 minutes long. I hope you guys kind of enjoy these videos where I give my insights on things, on how I collect, what I collect, my collecting style has, you know, over the years, how it's changed. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'm going to go ahead and end it here because I don't want to make this video too long. But if you guys are interested in any kind of topic related to comics or collecting, leave it in the comics section and I'll jot down some ideas and I'll make a video like this where I'm just kind of sitting here showing my CLZ app and shooting the shit with you guys. I mean, I like doing it. So if there's something you guys want me to talk about, focus on whatever in my collection, um, leave a comment. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. Remember to like, thumbs up, thumbs down if you have to. Subscribe. And it's the Junkie. And I'm out. Peace.